Were you drawn to Melinda more so because she is white? Welcome to our Q&A. The aim of today's session is basically just to spark a dialogue on topics around race, interracial relationships. We found that a lot of people want to know more, they want to engage. They think that maybe if they ask questions or they engage that they're gonna sound racist, etc. So yeah.
We like to think that we're approachable and we like to think that we are open to these conversations, but it actually takes initiative. I just want to take a minute to thank people for submitting questions, submitting their love and their appreciation to us. We appreciate you. Maybe we should say a bit about us.
Okay, so, alright, so we are interracial, obviously. You can see by the whiteness of my skin, and it is what it is. So there's the race differences, the culture differences, but I'm South African.
I'm American.
So we're going to be addressing some of those things as well.
From Z, she says, do your parents know about you guys? How did you break it to them?
Yes, being married, our parents do know about us. It honestly wasn't difficult from my side.
I returned to America. I said, there is someone. They might have assumed because the American assumption is oh, Africa, everyone looks like this guy. Didn't ask me outright about race.
Race wasn't at the forefront of the questions. It was, hey, where you guys gonna live?
And yes, he is a fantastic example of Africa.
Mm-hmm.
In one human being.
A-grade alpha male right here.
Wow, whole Zulu man. So humble. I know you feel the stares and biases about you two being together, but do you also get any type of regular support or commentary about being interracial and bridging the issues between black and white? Or is it mostly just judgment? What are you doing together type of mindset? I don't want to focus on the negative, but I feel like it is more negative. It feels like we have to fish for it. Now, we have to physically engage someone to get the positive reaction, whereas the negative reactions, they come entirely unasked for, obviously, and entirely unwarranted.
We do get the stares, the judgmental comments or the judgmental body language. We get it from everybody. That everywhere you go, there's gonna be someone who is unkind. But at the same time, yes, we've had the positive comments as well. It might start off tongue in cheek, hey, how did you manage, to find yourself a white woman? Those comments are passed not out of a position of judgment, but out of a position of curiosity, and so we engage from that point of view and turn into a positive situation.
And what have you found that's harder to accomplish, if anything, while being interracial couple? And on the opposite side, is there anything that you've found easier?
We haven't had any negative backlash from family.
There's been public spaces where we've felt more welcome in and more unwelcome in. If we have to deal with someone in the service industry, for example, let's say over the telephone or even in person, there is a cautious decision who is going to address the service person based on race.
Yeah, I guess that's the unfortunate part. A lot of the time, I'd say public spaces. Yeah, there's been places where we've
actively done that, yeah.
Yeah, and where we've felt genuinely uncomfortable, and we've ended up leaving that establishment because of the behavior of the patrons, etc. But on the other side, we've found that it's made it easier to transition between spheres of influence, if we can call it that.
When the COVID lockdown first started in South Africa and they were limiting the number of people in the shops, and they would give, one shopping cart per household. No one's looking at us like we're in the same household. So we could still shop together, even though they were limiting family members. What are you grateful about learning from Zulu culture versus American? I know she wants me to say American culture, like the communal culture, Ubuntu. I am because we are. Just the way people care for each other, like it's why I love this country. Just people have really taken me in. I've always felt welcome.
You know, it's the directness of, you know, American culture in a sense that when you need something, people are generally direct. For me, it's all about how people behave in public, and what's considered normal and appropriate behavior in public. For example, you don't engage with people that you don't know, not because you don't like them, but because the culture is more out of respect for that person's time and space. I'm not going to go and interfere in their personal space.
I like this expression. Asking someone to describe their own culture is like asking a fish to describe water. It's like asking a human being to describe breathing. Like, how do you do that? So I think we've been really blessed to be from different cultures, have a different culture in front of us, in our faces every day. It's just made us better individuals as a whole. Plug for getting to know different cultures. What were your biggest concerns about getting married in terms of race, and have they been proven or disproven?
It wasn't really a concern that was at the forefront of my mind. The reason I'm saying this is because I've already spoken to Mel's parents and gotten to know them. Am I going to be accepted into her friendship circle? And I mean, that's a general concern. Firstly, different race. Secondly, completely different culture. Yes, I might be black, and yes, there's black people in America, but black people in America have a different lifestyle and culture to black people in South Africa. So I guess that was a genuine concern.
I would say what Anton said, friendships and not fitting in. Have they been proven or disproven?
I would say they've been disproven. Now we interact quite regularly.
My biggest concern regarding marriage still to this day, being married interracial in America, continues to be my biggest concern, almost more than living in South Africa. And it's a shout out from our friend Stephanie. She says, beautiful and fun couple. Thank you, Stephanie. Mom's question is up next. What was or is your own biggest fear in relation to your marriage? Similar to the last question.
I wouldn't say I've got any fears per se. Like when we have kids, you know, the questions are going to come. How are we going to prepare our kids, not only an interracial family, but an intercultural family that is spread across 2 continents? That's more of a thought at the back of our minds all the time.
I think a lot about my inadequacies as I will be a white mom with interracial children. What do I do with their hair? What do I do to prepare them for the world around them? What do I tell them? And where do I get that advice in advance? Obviously, I like to be prepared. Not getting much in the way of a salon experience with this guy, so I want to be prepared. It's my heart's desire. I do worry a lot about that, about bringing interracial children into this world. South Africa, America, both. A shout out from Spe. Nothing to ask, but one thing I'd like to share is how awesome you are. God bless your marriage. A question from Clinton. Honest question, which demographic do you feel has been the least tolerable and which has been the most supportive? Also, which side of the family did you find it easier and more comfortable talking to about the interracial relationship? Love this idea, by the way. Thanks, Clint.
I would say the older folks, being brutally honest, black and white, we find that people our age and younger have been the most supportive. We do live in an area which is mostly white. We experience that intolerance from the older white generation based on where we live. But the times we do travel, and we find ourselves in areas that the demographic there is more black, the older generation there again is not as tolerant.
I would agree, and then add to that he has been approached a lot more than I have in terms of our relationship and asking questions or making statements. When I say approached more, I think by black people. Yeah, that probably speaks to, again, my privilege as a white person moving in and around this world. I don't get called into question as much as he does, so that sucks that I put that additional grief on him.
Next question is from Janae. This one's quite deep. Were you attracted to the idea of having a relationship with another race, or did you just fall in love with the person's heart? The question was also directed more at me, and were you drawn to Melinda more so because she is white? It's quite deep, and it's actually quite a relevant question because it addresses, I suppose, stereotypes, also addresses people's personal preferences. For example, some girls will say, no, I don't like guys that are not buff. I wouldn't say I was drawn to her more because she was white. We just happened to gel over a cup of coffee and cake. A mutual friend introduced us. By the end of the day of just sitting around chatting, I was like, that is a woman. For me, it was character. Had she been black with the exact same character, I would have still been attracted to her.
Next question from Teresa. Is there more racism in South Africa than in the United States? Obviously, this is from someone in the United States. It isn't more or less. Racism is racism, but it's communicated different.
But we haven't lived in the States, so we can't, we can't compare. Once we've lived there, we can say, hey, okay, is it worse? Is it more blatant? Is it more subtle? That's more of how that would go.
Differences in racism in the US versus here. We haven't been a married couple in the US yet, and I've always been white in America. I've always been the privileged population in America, so it's very difficult for me to sit here and now describe racism in America. Like, that's just not authentic for me.
Just another shout out from Andre. No question. I'm really happy for you both, so great.
Christina, love you, friends. We love you too, Christina. Shout out Colleen. Love this idea. No questions, no judgment, just love. We love you too, Colleen.
There's a question from Rona. Have you had any nasty experiences as a couple, and how did you handle it? Yeah, definitely. We've had nasty experiences, from walking across a parking lot into a grocery store and an elderly gentleman turning around, staring straight in our faces and shaking his head and walking away.
Like this look.
At one stage, we had a rather disapproving neighbor who would give us death stares every time we came home.
And refuse to speak to us.
Yeah. How did we handle it? We didn't rant and rave. We chose to be the bigger people. At the end of the day, that just shows the emptiness in those people's lives. These things are all happening in public places, so we've just chosen to care and love people as we love ourselves,
It's like bullying. You almost have to tell yourself, like, it's not me, it's you that has the issue, right? We try not to take it personally, but it does come into our home and into our discussions, and we have to love them anyway. That's a question for Anton. Are you going to do Lobolo for your children, and how does Melinda feel about it? Oh, sure, now we're on children.
Well, why are we bringing kids into this? They're not even here yet, so next question. It's not something we've discussed, because we haven't discussed the kids yet.
Sorry. What have been your favorite or least favorite experiences at each other's hands?
In terms of some things that culturally are a norm in South Africa that perhaps you weren't aware of,
Oh.
and it got irritating, or things that are a norm in America that I wasn't aware of and that got irritating. The concept of communal culture, like being out somewhere and just befriending the table next to you and talking to, having a great conversation for the rest of the evening. In South Africa, we do that automatically. In the States, that would be extremely disrespectful to intrude on another table's conversation.
Or creepy. He is going to struggle. Just the simple act of like going through the checkout point at the shops, striking up a conversation with the cashier is like fine. At restaurants is fine. He's gonna have to gauge it. There are parts of the US that are more warm, are more friendly. We're just gonna have to gauge that.
Has Melinda ever drunk umqombothi? Yes, she has.
And we'll leave it at that, because the parents are watching.
Has Melinda eaten traditional African food and enjoyed it? That's part 1. Part 2, how do you navigate food you don't like or used to eating without offending? And is it offensive to not eat African food at a gathering, etc.?
I lived with an Indian South African family. I ate a lot of foods. I ate a lot of spicy foods. I'll try everything once. I've eaten sharp one too many times for my liking because it's offered to me. Chicken feet, walkie-talkies. I've eaten these things. I do love food. I do take great pleasure also in sharing my foods. And it's a part of our culture. If there is a meal that I didn't particularly like, I'm giving away myself. You will see me offering to cook the next day something that I want to eat. Maybe I'm, missing America food, or maybe it's because I'm tired of eating certain foods. I got told one time I ate too slowly.
Oh yeah, that happened.
They were about to take the plate from under me.
African wedding. The rest of us at the table finished. Melinda was still going through her plate.
I was savoring.
The servers came through to remove all the plates, and like, oh no, we thought you're done by now.
The way I was raised, the food is not done until the plate is clean.
Next question. Melinda's favorite Zulu meal and Anton's favorite American food.
Pap and spinach and pumpkin, or pap and beans, pap and sauce.
What about
Chakalaka.
amasi?
Oh yeah, you can put pap and amasi. I won't get tired of it. Still learning how to make it. Thank you. But he makes it really nice. Putu, excuse me.
Cheese. Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Anything with cheese.
Yeah. Put the cheese in there and put meat in there and I'm happy. Burritos. For me, that would be quite a nice one.
Do you feel awkward or out of place being possibly the only white person at a Zulu wedding? Been there. Done that.
Do you feel awkward or?
For like the first few minutes, and then it was such a vibe. I was like, I didn't care. I don't know if I'm like really sensitive to race. I don't know. I'm just sensitive. I'm an introvert, so I'm very sensitive to like my surroundings. So I will generally be the one to notice first, like, oh, this is a predominantly white space or this is predominantly black space. If I'm the outlier, I'm like, shucks, I'm the outlier, and then move on and enjoy it. I don't know.
See you in session number 2.
Session number 2. So we're committed.
Yep, we committed.
If you enjoyed this, please message us. Because like we said at the beginning, the negative comes more readily than the positive. Sorry we have to ask for it. But we do have to ask if you have something positive to say, to contribute. We're seeing all the hearts. This is our first time going live, by the way. If you want to see it again, please tell us. We want to please the people. We want to give the people what they want. Thank you so much again for contributing.
Thanks, everyone.
Cheers.
Cheers.